this meeting to order. Thank you. Forget about that. Call the meeting to order, the second monthly meeting of the Hendersonville City Council, Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. Is there anything anyone would like to have removed from or added to the agenda? If not, the agenda is approved as presented. Okay, go ahead. Who is
First,
Good.
so, Mayor Volkmer, City Council, I'd like to ask Tom Wooten to come forward, and Councilmember Hensley, a couple of meetings ago, had asked for an update on street maintenance, so Tom has put a presentation from our Public Works Department on how we do street maintenance around the city.
This is why you're dressed up.
That's right. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. It's my pleasure to come before you this afternoon and just give you an update on our street maintenance activities and kind of describe how we do things. This is just a map showing all of our city streets are in red. The kind of gray streets, if you can see these, are private roads, and the black ones, the dark ones, are all NCDOT streets that they maintain. And we have about 67.5 miles that are ours, and that's total miles, but it doesn't include if you're measuring lane miles. So if you kind of double that and include some turn lanes and stuff, we have approximately 140 miles of lane miles. It's just another way of describing how many miles of street that you have. And then we've got a little over 59.5 miles of sidewalk in town, and that's growing all the time with each development that gets built, and we take over the sidewalk maintenance. We update this map each year for our POW bill program and report this to the state. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. How do you zoom in with this one? The top button? All right. So that helps a little bit, but it doesn't show. So this is basically the map that we were just looking at, but the different colors indicate the different PCI ratings for our streets. So the green ones, the lighter color ones, are good. Yellow is medium. I think there's an orange color that's kind of on the lower end, and then red is bad. So we're in decent shape, but not great shape. Our current rating is about 70.91, and that was the last time that we did. That's the last time that we did a PCI, which is back in 2018, and we're scheduled to do a new study this upcoming budget year, and we hope we're getting that process started now. So, like I said, we hope to get that done shortly after July, as the budget process starts in July. Any questions about that so far?
Tom, PCI is the pavement condition, right? It's pavement condition index.
Good question.
Looks at the asphalt, yeah.
Basically we hire an engineering firm. They come in and they look at all different kinds of stuff like alligator cracking, block cracking, transverse cracking, potholes, any kind of distress that they can find in our streets. And of course, the less stuff that they find, the higher rating, which gives it the green color, which tells us that it's a good street. And then the more problems that they find, lowers those scores, which puts it in the bad category or somewhere in between. And so we take this data, and we can get it in tabular form, and basically create our paving list each year. make rough estimates. So we take the worst streets first and try to repave those. And then next year, we do the same thing, pick a group of streets, we'll resurface those. And we just kind of work from the worst streets and try to just keep that process going until, you know, we just get into the better and better and better streets. But it's just a perpetual cycle because, as we all know, there's utility cuts, there's freeze and thaw, there's all this other stuff that's going on in town that we have to deal with, sinkholes, stormwater issues. So it's just kind of a perpetual cycle. That's why it's good to do these every 5 years or more often if you can, just to make sure you're trying to stay on top of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
So the company will actually be doing the study in 2023, or will it happen in 2024?
Budget year '24.
Okay, and so how long does the actual data take to produce?
So they can come in, depending on which company we choose, it usually takes them about a week to go through town. They basically have this sophisticated camera system that they mount on a pickup truck or a van or even a motorcycle. And like I said, they just ride every street in town, even the DOT roads. Because last time, there's a lot of sidewalks that are on DOT streets that we maintain, so we get them to look at those as well, because they can pick up if there's trip hazards, if there's missing sections of sidewalk, if there's sidewalk on one side of the street and not on the other side, it captures all that data.
Is there a goal to maintain the PCI rating, or is it to actually improve the PCI rating?
Improve it.
Okay,
That's our goal.
okay.
Because the better that PCI is, the better our streets are in town.
Does that affect, oh, I'm sorry.
You go ahead, my phone.
Does that affect auto insurance rates or anything like that?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is the PCI rating of a brand-new street 100?
In theory. I don't know that it's always the case, but if I had to answer that, my answer would be yes.
Okay.
But if you asked a consultant who did that work, they might say yes, but.
But
Because
what?
as soon as you pave, it starts to deteriorate.
No, I got it, but I'm talking about the day after the paving is laid down,
Yes,
that's 100.
yep.
Okay.
But if day two, somebody comes in and does a
No,
utility cut.
I get it. I realize the wear and
It
tear.
changes the game.
But
But
we
yes.
start with
my
a
answer
brand-new
would be
street that nobody's driven on, that's 100.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Tom, like on some of the streets, like North Main and Church Street, how do we address the concerns of the residents on those conditions of those roads until it's completed or
So
repaired?
basically, when we get complaints, we recommend that the customers call NCDOT.
Okay,
Because DOT, like North Main, 25, Highway 64, 191, all the major streets in town, like the numbered streets, we don't maintain them. So DOT maintains those. So we recommend that anybody that calls to us and complains about it, to call DOT, just to make sure that they're getting the message too, and it's not just us.
And Debbie, North Main, or Church Street and King Street are already on DOT's paving schedule.
Yeah. Yep.
it's sometime this summer, right?
One of them.
One of them's starting, yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, right now, we're about on schedule to resurface every street about every 21.76 years. Yes, sir.
Does repave or resurface, does that mean?
It's synonymous.
Right. Does that mean that even if you have patched a street, does that qualify, or does repave mean we're going to do the whole street side to side all the way the length of it?
Yep.
Okay.
So patching is different. That's, you're
That's
just.
not considered repaving the
No.
street?
Mm-mm. Yep. Patch is a patch. Resurface, like you said, is side to side, one end to the next.
Okay.
Right now, we're at 21.76 to resurface every street. Our goal would be to get that down to 20 or even lower. So currently, we're spending about $600,000 annually, and that, again, that's just on our streets and nobody else's DOT or private property. And so that 600,000 is typically made up of about 460,000 roughly from Powell bill funds, which comes from the state. Part of that's the gasoline tax that we all pay. And then the other 132,000 is from the general fund. And that's about the same 130, 140 from the general fund for FY '24, and then about 460 from the Powell bill funds. And that's just an estimate for what we'll spend in FY '24. Yes, ma'am.
I assume that's some sort of a match number.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
So
ask.
if the city were to,
So we get a certain amount from the Powell bill fund each year. Like I said, it's generally $460,000. And then whatever that difference is to bring it up to 600 comes from the general fund.
And I'll remind city council, and let most of you know, remind the mayor and Jerry, but the rest of you, that about 2014, prior to 2014, we were only using Powell bill money. We were only using the gas tax. And about 2014, city council said, you know, where it's taken us too long, we were trying to get to that 20-year goal as it relates to resurfacing streets. We were higher than the 21.76 at that point. And the council wanted to put local tax dollars into street resurfacing, and that was a priority of council. So about 2000, I think it was a budget around FY 14 that the council allocated. At that time, it was the equivalent of 1 penny. We have also used the motor vehicle fee to allocate that, to pay that. Is that accurate, Brian? And
Yeah, I can jump in. We switched from the penny to the motor vehicle fee.
Yeah.
And then just last year, Powell bill allocations increased by $100,000 to us. So that's why our numbers dropped. It normally was around 200,000 or so that we were contributing from the general fund. But we ended up they expanded the street aid support at the state level. So it helped our budget from that perspective. But we've been trying to grow that number back up and put more money back into Powell bill.
what is that number based on, the 460,000 from Powell bill? Like, how is that determined that we get that amount?
Number of miles maintained of streets. So part of it is number of miles maintained, and part of it is population.
Yeah,
So
it's a state formula.
Two-part formula.
yeah. So every municipality in the state that maintain, not counties, because counties don't maintain roads in North Carolina, but municipalities get a portion of the Powell bill. And it's based, again, on road miles and population.
But it's based on our city population, not the population that is
Not our
coming into
daytime
our
population.
town.
No, it's just based
Driving the
on,
roads every day.
yeah.
Population.
So not cars on the road?
No, it's just,
And so our roads here are utilized at an exceptionally higher rate, essentially, than probably other municipalities who are applying for Powell bill funds because they're not tourist destinations,
you could absolutely make that argument. Yeah.
much like our police and fire
Yeah,
and
that's
all the other
another-
things.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The 68-mile figure we used earlier,
Yes, sir.
that does not include 25, 191, 64.
Nope.
So there's actually more miles of streets in the city. The 68 is just the ones that we maintain.
That's right. That's just our measurement.
Okay.
Do you have a number roughly of like the I'm sorry to be like just hammering you with questions, but
What I'm here for.
I want to fix the damn streets. So like, is there a percentage of the amount of roads or streets in the city that is not city-owned? Or is there kind of like a rough estimate? Because the primary roads, right, that people complain about the most are not actually city-maintained streets.
Right.
And so there's a lot of frustration with residents and people who feel like we should be doing more. And I agree, we should, definitely be maintaining a standard of what we're doing now, but that don't actually understand that we don't have really a lot of control over those. So it would be nice if we had some sort of like, I don't know, figure, or, hey, 40% of the roads in the city of Hendersonville are not actually ours. I don't know if it's 40, but I would bet it's probably pretty high.
I don't know what the number is, but I think we can figure it out.
Okay.
Our GIS folks could.
Yep.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
The 68 miles that we do control, You also mentioned something a while ago called 140 lane miles.
Yep.
Do you know which number they use for the Powell bill, the 140 lane miles or the 68?
67 and a half.
So no matter if it's 1 lane or 5 lanes, it's just a mile of road?
Yep.
Okay. Wow, there could definitely be some disparities around the state, like cities like Charlotte and Raleigh and them, where every road's like 5 lanes.
Yeah, definitely. So, on average, the last couple of years, we've been paving about 3.14 miles, resurfacing about 3.14 miles. And that varies a little bit depending on whether we're milling or not milling, because if we're milling, then that drives up the cost of the contract, and that's less asphalt that we can put down on top of the old streets. All right, so what does our street department spend their time doing? And this is not inclusive, but I'll show you kind of, and it's kind of hard to read, sorry about that. But the big part of this is repairing pavement cuts and stormwater issues. So 47% of our time is spent doing pavement cuts, 19% stormwater issues, and what's the other big one? Sidewalk repairs. Actually, I think, sorry, I wish this was a better slide. Anyway, it gives you a snapshot of what we're spending our time doing. And it could be, like I said, pavement repairs, potholes, sidewalk repairs, sinkholes, things along those lines. It's not an all-inclusive list, like I said, but I just want to give you kind of a snapshot of what we're doing. Now, the difference in this file, this pie chart is, this is just for my work orders. Now, what happens is either Public Works or Water and Sewer will create a work order for our guys to go do. And it could be checking a dangerous tree, repairing a trip hazard on the sidewalk, or repairing an asphalt cut or concrete cut for that matter, or stormwater issue. So our street department has just started using CityWorks to do this work. We were slowly getting on board with that and getting our guys able to use this system, so that we're kind of early in our data capturing process. But from the work orders that we had done in 22 and 23, 73% of our time was spent on pavement cuts. So I just wanted to show that, but again, this is not all inclusive. This is just what we did off of our work order system out of CityWorks. Any questions so far? Good. Okay. Now, utility cuts. In August of 21, we were spending about 30% of our time working on utility cuts. Like I said, currently it's about 47% of our time. On average, we're completing those work orders for the utility cuts about every 10 days. So far, we've completed 201 utility cuts just for water and sewer, and that is countywide. So if the county goes out in Etowah and cuts the asphalt, then we're traveling out there with our crew to make the asphalt patch. And then we've also, yes, sir.
Who pays for that?
So when the work orders are completed, we put our cost inside of that, and then it goes to, we send that to finance. And there's a process where that is.
And the utility fund itself, the water and sewer fund, pays the general fund for that work.
Okay, that's what I meant.
So the utility customers are paying the taxpayers back for the work that's, and the materials for that.
Right. work and materials.
So does Duke and AT&T reimburse us for our utility cuts?
No, not right at the moment, and we're checking into that because they pay, and I might need some help from some of the finance guys on this, but they pay I think it's a franchise fee. Is that right, John or Brian? Or some type of tax. Angie?
I mean, there is a utility tax that we get. I mean,
And it's a
Consumers pay that
substantial
tax.
amount, I think. But anyway, what we understand is that these utilities like AT&T and Duke who pay that utility tax, then we can't charge them for like encroachment permit fees. So right now, we're not charging them for that. There is some, we're not 100% sure that we can't charge them for the actual materials that we're using to fix the sidewalks. Most of the time with Duke or AT&T, it's a sidewalk cut. But, so we're checking in to that right now. We're trying to do some research and see, but, and you know, we kind of had a gentleman's agreement with specifically Duke and some of the other companies, whereas they've, in the past, if they were digging and hit a water line, then they wouldn't, we wouldn't, all right, so if AT&T was digging in the ground and hit a water line, then we would go out and fix it and wouldn't charge them anything. And then if we were digging and accidentally hit a phone line, then they would come out and fix it and they wouldn't charge us anything. It's kind of like a gentleman's agreement where if somebody messed up.
Does that gentleman's agreement equal, though?
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's probably more on the episode, like, other end of it.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I really don't know. We're trying to, what we're trying to do is get these companies to go through our encroachment application process, even though we don't charge them a fee. So at least we can start tracking how many cuts they're doing each year and what we're spending on repairing all these cuts. So we're kind of early in that process too.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So they make a cut, I'm talking about Duke AT&T now.
Yeah.
And they just leave it there for us to fix it?
Yeah. I mean, they let us know most of the time.
Could we say to them, no, you pay somebody to fix it?
We could, yeah.
But we can't tell them, no, you pay us to fix it?
Yeah, I don't think so, but I'm not positive on that yet.
Okay.
We're checking into it.
That definitely, if the water and sewer customers are paying for it, it seems like the Duke and AT&T customers should be paying for it as well.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And so like I said, we're trying to figure that one out. We've heard that other municipalities do charge them, and then we've heard that it's illegal to do that. So right now, I don't know.
I agree that we don't want them paying someone else to fix it.
Right.
Because we want it done to our standard. I would agree that paying another vendor to do it is not a good idea. They should be paying us to do it.
We want it done right, definitely.
I think it's the encroachment fee that they don't have to pay, not necessarily the utility cut. We can look and make sure, but it's in
Okay.
our fee schedule right now, the utility cut fee. And what Tom's talking about is back in April, we had some correspondence about it. And I think it's just the encroachment permit fee that they don't have to pay.
Okay.
But the cost for the cut.
Materials.
They
Okay.
for us to do the cut, they can, but we can look at it and make sure, but
Okay, great.
I think that's right.
And would that be a set fee, or would it be based on like some square footage or something?
So in the fee schedule, it's a set fee, isn't it?
So we have like a base fee. So like for a
Right.
5x5 cut, we have a set fee, and then if it goes up.
Okay, well, that's on square
depending on the
footage,
size.
okay.
Yeah. But we'll meet and figure it out.
Is this creating more problems for John Buchanan to bill somebody for something?
No. Especially with City Works, by going to the workload management and work order system, it's easy to put hours, it's easy to put materials in there, and we can generate reports and.
Yep.
They need to be paying,
Well, I'm with
yeah.
you.
Okay. And just other things to consider in these pie charts that I showed you, that there's other stuff that we do that are not included in those, is snow and ice removal, flooding, special events, water barricades, bridge maintenance, retaining walls, tree removal, some other things that are not included in those pie charts.
Oh, okay, my fault. Now that it's not paid for, because I thought we just created a system where filling up the water barricades is now part of the fee when you're on Main Street. Right. That meant what you're actually doing with your time. I got it.
Yeah, this is strictly
Sorry.
related to our time.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep, yeah. You're talking about the special event fee.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And just to answer your question, Church Street and North Main Street will be resurfaced out to Clear Creek Road this summer, we're told.
Starting where?
I think at 5 Points.
No, the road beside the fire station is a mess. Right before you get to 5 Points?
No, that's the part, that's,
coming up.
that's next year, right?
Okay.
It's King
That's
is
inverted, right?
23.
We gotta do a King first.
Yeah.
I think we're doing King, Tom. I think we're doing King first. Church is next. Anyway, yeah.
Now, I'm talking about what would be in essence King Street, on the right of the fire
You're
station.
absolutely right. That slide is wrong. It is King Street.
That road it is totally torn up.
Yeah, it's weird. I have it right on this one. That's wrong. Anyway, King Street,
The tech gremlins are real.
King Street and North Main will be repaid this summer, and then Church Street will be next summer. Sorry for the confusion. I thought I had that correct. President.
Basically, I think they're gonna start down at South Main area and go all the way through to, I mean, because follow North Main, Clear Creek, all the way out to Clear Creek, so.
Yeah. And it needs it. It's in bad shape. All right. I'll entertain any other questions that you've got. Yes, ma'am?
Is it possible to get some sort of like number for how much utility cuts cost us? Like a total?
Are you talking about for the AT&T and Duke cuts, or, so yeah, as we already have it for what we're doing for our water and sewer department. We've got that data because we send that to finance monthly. But as we start capturing that data for AT&T and Duke, we'll have that as well.
Okay. So up until now, we have not been previously capturing the data?
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, Halloween traffic control options.
Yes, Mayor Vogt, members of the City Council, I'll ask Chief Mahan and Tom to come back up, ask Tom to stay, and the council had asked us after Halloween last year to look at some options to particularly help with pedestrian traffic around the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Avenue areas of downtown during Halloween. And so the Police Department and Public Works have been putting together some options for council to consider.
All right, good afternoon, council, Madam Mayor. We'll tag team this. So this is we met a few months ago based on y'all's guidance to come up with some options for you to consider for Halloween night on 4th Avenue. So we have 3 on the slides here. I do have a 4th one that I just learned about that I will offer at the end. And then we'll have some other things that we want y'all to consider as you talk about this and give us direction on how you want us to operate this Halloween. So this is sort of like a Goldilocks, right? There's sort of a least impactful, too much, and maybe middle of the road here. But our first option for you is that we use message signboards and some cones and social media to inform everybody that there'll be a bunch of people in the street during this time. The road would remain open, so the pros is it allows access for homeowners to get to and from their house. It has the least amount of impact on both of our departments, but of course it it doesn't totally satisfy the concern of safety of the people walking in and out of the streets. There's just a little bit more visibility with this option. So this is what we would consider the least restrictive option for controlling the traffic on Fourth Avenue.
And we currently do not own any message boards, so we would have to rent those if we chose to do that.
There is an option for us to get one from the county or the emergency management, but they don't like to give it to us for something that's a one-day event. So I think Tom's right. The best course of action would be for us to rent one until such time as we had, a couple in our inventories in either department. Any questions about this one before I go to the next? The next is sort of the mama bear one, right? So we would close Fourth Avenue down, but leave the cross streets open. So this would entail some staff time, right? So it would take some time of Tom's folks to place water barricades, fill them. We would need police officers at some of the intersections there. And so and again, we would allow the avenue, or not the avenues, but the cross streets on Fourth Avenue open to vehicular traffic. And so, the block on Fourth Avenue would be secure, but as they cross from one block to another, we don't have the personnel, nor does Tom, to block every one of these intersections. So we would put an officer on each end and one that sort of roved, or two that roved in between, North Justice and Blythe Street. And so, again, things to consider. It may create some traffic issues around the area, but it allows us to control the majority of Fourth Avenue for the people. And we recognize that, there's so many kids and parents there that they're walking in the street and things like this. So this is a way to really secure Fourth Avenue. Yes, sir.
So would that mean there'd be water barricades and you can't drive into the street?
Yeah, we talked about putting them on each one. The issue is going to be Tom's.
Yeah, so the water barriers would be basically only on Fourth Avenue,
No, I get it.
but yeah, and so you'd be able to go across streets, but other than that, there'll be water barriers. And that's kind of that last bullet point there. So if we're already blocking down Main Street, blocking off Main Street with water barriers.
But basically, Main Street is blocked off the same way, isn't it?
Yes.
In other words, don't the cross streets across Main Street, you can still use those, or are those blocked as well?
No, it's a total closure.
Those are blocked, the whole street is blocked now, okay,
Yes, sir. It's closed from Sixth Avenue down to,
okay.
Where is
Haven't been
the,
trick or treating in a while with my kids on Main Street.
where is the 150 water barriers? Where is that number coming from?
So that's what we're estimating that we would need on Main Street
Okay.
And Fourth
and
Avenue.
Fourth Avenue.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute, I
Yeah.
don't think we would need that many for Fourth.
And that's we spent some time trying to figure it out, but that's about what it
Okay.
would take to do it. It would take about 7.5 hours to fill all of those, and about a little over 11,000 gallons of water to fill all of them. Currently, we only have 140 of the water barriers on hand, so we would have to buy some more if we wanted to do this.
And ambulances can get around them. So I don't really think about that on Main Street, but that is a neighborhood. So I could see the chances that we might need to make an ambulance call greater because it is a neighborhood.
If push comes to shove, no pun intended, but they can push their way through.
Okay,
Yeah.
right?
literally push the water barrier.
Yes.
It would potentially be a delay because they would have to push an ambulance through the barricades, or we would have to drain them, which takes time to do that, or they would have to park on the corner and, walk over to where it is. So that is a consideration as you think about this. So moving on to Papa Bear, this would be a complete closure. So what we would do is all of Fourth Avenue, all of the cross streets would be closed at Fifth Avenue and at Third Avenue. And this would be, again, a complete closure of the neighborhood. You wouldn't be able to get in if you were a homeowner. But this is the most safe option for people in the street because there would be zero vehicles that would be able to get down into that area. Of course, it expands our footprint out. It impacts more residents. Looking at some of the stuff that Tom's folks put on there, there would be a lot more barriers, a lot more water that would be used on that. And if we had a medical emergency, it would be much more difficult to get fire or EMS into that block. And so I think for the last slide and this slide, the drain on our manpower would be relatively the same. So that I don't think that there's an increase in that, but it would obviously just be a lot more restriction on the neighborhood. So the fourth option, before we go into the other considerations for y'all to think about, is I learned that there is a block similar to this in the city of Asheville. And so what they do is they close down each end of the avenue, and I don't know what street it is or what it looks like. They use a fire truck on one end, and they use just regular sawhorses on the other end. And they use neighborhood volunteers to block all of the intersections. What that means is that the police department, by law, we have to train everyone has to be trained in traffic control. So law enforcement gets trained in basic law enforcement training, fire guys get trained in fire academy. But if we wanted to train anyone else to direct traffic, they can do that. But by state law, we have to have a training course. So we would have to, assuming that we found enough volunteers to close the road in the manner that y'all would say is appropriate, we would need to find those people and train them, and then use the minimum amount of barricades, probably at North Justice and at Blythe Street, to close off each end of it, and have the neighborhood volunteers control all the other intersections. And so, we could probably throw an officer at it to sort of be the liaison to help control that. But I think that is a proven model in the city of Asheville that my understanding works well for that neighborhood. I don't know how similar it is to this neighborhood, but I've done other events or, participated in other events in other cities, and they use a ton of volunteers to block intersections to great effect. Because at some point, there's just not enough city employees to do all of this. So I don't know y'all's experience, if you think we would be able to find enough volunteers to be able to do that. But that is a fourth option. I guess maybe that's the Goldilocks option. That might be the best way for us to have maybe the middle option of street closure, right? Cross streets open or something like that, and we just have enough volunteers that help people go from one block to the other safely and do it that way.
So in that option, a person is basically like a crossing guard.
Yes, sir.
And they are allowing traffic to come through, basically making sure no one is in the way.
Yes, sir.
Would Fourth Avenue still be blocked off for traffic, or they would permit them to drive onto Fourth Avenue? Or I guess that's
I think
what's to be determined.
what I would say our recommendation is we would block all of Fourth Avenue, keep the cross streets open, use those volunteers as crossing guards.
As they cross
to
the
help
cross
people to
streets.
get across from one block to the other, to either stop a car or to stop the crowd, to let a car go through, but not allow them to turn vehicles onto Fourth Avenue. Because that's really, I think, from listening to y'all, the biggest
Unless
concern.
they lived there.
Yeah.
I think if they live on Fourth Avenue, it's fine. The issue was people that were using Fourth Avenue to get down to Blythe Street and
The traffic pattern.
flying. But if they're blocked on both sides, I think if people were allowed to get to their house from one of the side streets, I think that would be okay.
That's a little hard to control, to get someone to prove that they live there, but we can certainly work around.
What would be
All
the
of those.
traffic pattern? I mean,
They
Well,
would have-
depending on what option y'all come up with, it's how we would implement it. So if you wanted this option, your traffic would be Fifth Avenue and Third Avenue and nothing in that block. But I think what we've presented on the slides are the three closure options. How we implement that is really up to y'all. And so the other things to think about is we have the trick or treat downtown event going on at the same time. We had 6 officers out there yesterday. I don't know how many, or last year. I don't know how many Tom had. There were also fire department out there. But there were if anybody was down there last year, I know Mayor, you were down there. There were thousands of people. I don't know how many, I'm saying at least 5,000 people, if not more. And we had a lot of issues from a police department standpoint because one ghost looks like another ghost and they get separated from their parents, and we had medical issues. We had a lot of things going on that took a lot of police resources. So, you know, doing this in Fourth Avenue, utilizing police staff to do both, becomes very taxing on our folks. But that's why when I heard about how Asheville does it, seems like a really great model if we can get the volunteers to do that, and I would think we could in this community.
What type of volunteer force does the sheriff's department have with their VIPs? Do we know the numbers that they have?
They have a lot, and they have offered assistance to us in the past. We've not utilized that, but that's certainly, they've at least offered it, so I assume that is a resource. I don't know how busy they are on Halloween or what they're doing, but I'm happy to reach out to the sheriff and talk to their folks. Again, the Asheville one, they actually use volunteers from that live in that neighborhood, but.
This just sounds like a liability nightmare. I mean, I'm just thinking of law school questions going through my head as we're talking about this, by having those volunteers actually directing traffic.
Could be, if they're like official volunteers, like, you know, then they are covered under our insurance and we're covered for their activities.
Okay.
I mean, these are the same volunteers that could be potentially responsible in a half marathon that we do here all the time.
Sure.
I mean, like, they're all traffic volunteers essentially, because they're holding down a road, they're allowing runners to pass or cyclists to pass, so.
You're talking about the VIPs? Yeah.
I think my concern is just that on a race weekend, we don't necessarily have a surge of people. You're just trying to stop the normal traffic. Whereas this is, people are driving to get there.
Yeah, it's daylight.
So the
Oh, that's a good point, and
VIPs,
it's daylight. I hadn't thought about that, yeah.
the VIPs that were providing a service for us, I still think would be covered under the county's insurance, not ours. I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about like our
No,
community.
that's what I meant. No, I did mean our.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, ours
Yes.
to be covered.
That's the biggest concern, is that it is dark, and
Yeah.
you have thousands of children who literally leave Main Street, and they come down, and it's like a herd of them. And then they come down Fourth Avenue, and they're running across the street, back and forth, and, I mean, there will be a child that gets hit on Fourth Avenue one year. Like, it's inevitable, and it's the scariest thing to watch, like, as a parent to watch it. And so, I mean, we have to do something, because doing nothing, I don't feel like is acceptable. I like the Asheville model idea. I like allowing the community to participate, and there are a lot of people that live in that area that have a lot of concerns about these kids, like living, I mean, I live on Fifth, and it's something the neighbors talk about regularly, is how scared they are. And I also like the idea of using the VIPs who are actually already trained, you know, that I think would be willing to help. I mean, I think it would be worth reaching out and seeing if we can have a discussion. From my point of view, I also like the idea of completely closing down Fourth and allowing Avenue access, because I think the problem is that somebody's gonna tell you that they're just, oh, I just live right down there, and then they zip through, and they're just dropping kids off at another house, or, you know, you've got the parents that are literally driving their kids to trick or treat, and they're just, kids are in and out of the cars, running around the front of the cars, and it just takes 1 second for a driver to become, you know, distracted and run over somebody, so that's how I feel.
We have that problem in my neighborhood too.
I think the thing that makes Fourth Avenue so tricky, and I know we have other areas of town where there's high volumes of trick-or-treaters, but because Fourth Avenue is like a straight shot,
From Main Street.
it's easy for people to get going. And there were at least 3 or 4 cars last year that when they went past us, I was like, it was too much. I like the option 4. I think it might be nice to also still include the message boards, just because people pay attention to those. If we wanted to do something like that, just to be like, you know, watch out for the kids in the area or something. I mean, I feel like most people should realize that there's kids trick or treating on Halloween, but some people don't always know what day it is if you don't have kids that are also participating in Halloween. So, but I think Jen's right. Like, we have to do something because we've been going down there for a couple of years now, and I think last year was probably the worst year so far as cars going quickly.
Well, and as Treat Street gets bigger, which
Yep.
it gets bigger every year.
Yep.
Like, I've watched it literally like triple in size in the last 3 years. And it's like, as Treat Street gets bigger, they all know that you've got to hit 4th and 5th also for more candy. And so they just literally leave Maine and then head down to our neighborhoods. And so it's just, it's a lot of people. A lot of people.
So can I check our understanding here? Y'all would like us to do the 4th Avenue closure with the side streets open and explore the possibility of using a combination at least of the VIPs and maybe some other civilian volunteers with minimal staff down there on Halloween.
And my question on that option there is, with regard to Fourth Avenue, not the ends, I know obviously put up barricades there, but the cross streets, the blockage is the volunteer. Would not be barricades there, or there would be barricades?
Utilize the sawhorse barricades
That's what I
if
was,
you wanted to.
That's what Asheville uses too.
yeah.
Right, because I just think that, yeah, we need a barricade, because to ask a volunteer to say, don't turn, and somebody says, I'm gonna turn, they're not trained to do that, right? So having something there that, and I like the sawhorse, because in the case of an ambulance, move it easily or just run it over, not a problem.
And we can, the VIPs probably have all of their own equipment, but we can get, just like we do with our crossing guards, we can get visibility vests, we can get lighted stop signs. We can get the things that they would need to be visible themselves. We wouldn't just ask them to come out in their blue jeans and.
I think in general, the presence of people who look like they're professional or
Slow
have
people
some
down.
sort of official-looking business will detour a significant amount of the traffic and issues that we would have, because I know you guys are utilizing a lot of your, sorry, I get distracted, a lot of your stuff on Main Street, but even having an officer on like one of those thingies, or a bike, kind of doing laps on Fourth Avenue, it gives parents a feeling of somebody's out here and they're checking up on us. And, and then if there was that person who went rogue and tried to zip down, they know that there's, an officer or somebody to come to help them quickly. And so I think in general, just the presence of people is going to be a way better situation.
Okay.
And maybe what we can do, if we're gonna be looking for volunteers from the neighborhood, possibly anyways, I think we also need to alert all of these people that live on Fourth Avenue that they're not probably going to be able to leave their house or get to their house, which they can't really leave their house or get to their house during that time anyways. But maybe in that same letter, we can say, hey, we're really looking for volunteers to help us with these kiddos and directing traffic.
If
you're
you live on
interested.
Fourth on Halloween, you either leave town,
Yeah,
like you're not here at all, or you're there participating and you don't really leave.
I just don't want anybody to be able to say, we didn't tell them.
Right.
Understood. We will definitely get
We
with
have a
Allison and
blast.
Brandy and craft messages, because, we do have to identify some people. We've got to get them trained. We have to get
Yep.
them equipped. So
So we
there'll be
gotta do
some,
that soon.
yeah, well, there'll be some cost, but those are minimal, I think, in the big scheme of things. And I guess Tom can look for some message boards and things like that. We need to be able to do that, but
Thank you.
I think it's a good plan. I like it.
Thank you so much for looking into this, seriously.
All right, that's it.
Thank you.
So we agreed on the Asheville option,
Yep.
okay?
I just didn't want to call it the Asheville option, so let's go with option 4.
I mean, it's not like
We could be
North
like,
Korea. I mean, we can say Asheville.
Well, can we though?
We can call them the city from up north, like we do Michigan. We don't
Those
acknowledge
up
them
above.
in Ohio.
Okay, draft zoning text amendment priority list.
Yes, good afternoon. Switching gears a little bit. This is not nearly as fun to go through or think about as that was, but we'll go through it. So This, there's a handout in front of each of you, should look like this, also shown on the screen, this very busy screen that's shown and busy spreadsheet in front of you. That is for you, and you should have received this sooner, but if you haven't had a chance to go through it, you will have time to try and go through that and digest it. The point of my presentation today is to go into a little more detail, if needed, on some of these topics, and to get a general sense of direction from City Council on these range of issues that we've identified within our ordinances. We don't have solutions yet, but we have identified things that we'd like to see change. And so understanding how do we tackle this, in what order, what are the priorities, is what we're seeking some direction on today. And so this has really developed over the last couple of years as we've worked through the code and identified things and kind of kept a running list of items. And there's been some questions about, well, we're going into the comprehensive plan. I thought one of the goals was to then rewrite the zoning code based on the comprehensive plan. So why would we do these now? And so the answer to that would be that, the comprehensive plan is at least a year-long process. RFP for someone to rewrite the zoning code, and then for them to do that work was at least another year. So bare minimum 2 years, probably longer, maybe longer. So these would serve as, or maybe that gets pushed off even further. So no reason to not address some of the issues that we've identified. And it could serve as a Band-Aid, could be more of a long-term fix, could be something that's kept and retained into the zoning ordinance rewrite. So we took this to our planning board legislative committee. They reviewed it. They sent us their rankings of where they would prioritize these items. Staff looked at it, and we provided a ranking as well. Our perspective was specifically, okay, this is going to be very complex, or this seems a little more simple. This is going to be controversial, or this should not be all that controversial. This is something that is affecting our daily task and our customer service abilities. So all those things kind of went into how we ranked these. And then we brought it to the planning board as a whole, and they provided some comments as well. And so all that is reflected in the columns that are in front of you. And so I'm going to go through each of these items and how they kind of came out in these rankings. I'm going to do a brief overview. If you have a question, feel free to ask me a question. Otherwise, I'm going to try and be efficient with everyone's time and just kind of work through it. And then at the end, let y'all discuss and provide any direction to staff. So the first item.
Before we start,
Yes.
I just need some clarification from my conversation with you this afternoon. We're not being asked to rank these at this meeting today. Okay.
Yeah. So the first item, housing, we've called this short term. So these are related to improving opportunities for infill development, if you will, and increasing housing stock. That should be relatively simple, less complex, less contentious. Addressing setbacks is a major way of doing that. Minimum lot sizes is another way of doing that. We've already accomplished one of these in addressing an issue in our subdivision ordinance. And so we would be looking at some of those kind of low-hanging fruit. The second is.
I have a question about that one.
Yes.
So the first one, then, the goal is you would be changing the current zoning by reducing setbacks. Is that what that means?
Yeah, so I mentioned this. This particular slide kind of gets into solutions already. There could be other solutions that are identified. Primarily, we're identifying issues. And so this is kind of commingled with that. The issue being that we have some very large front setbacks in some of our residential districts. So the utilization of land is reduced automatically based on that minimum front setback. And so if we were to reduce that front setback, it allows for more flexibility in use of that land. Could allow for additional infill development. Minimum lot sizes is probably the biggest one. You'll find that one later on in our long-term housing strategy. Revision to the commercial highway mixed use, that is our Upward Road zoning district. highway mixed-use zoning district is primarily for Chimney Rock Road, 64. There was a study done a number of years ago that resulted in some access management standards that were incorporated into the highway mixed-use zoning district. They are not incorporated into the commercial highway mixed-use district. The idea would simply be to mirror, do some review of those standards and mirror them and just borrow from the HMU and put it in the CHMU. Should be very simple. And as Upward Road, which is a developing corridor, we would have the potential for more interconnectivity between adjacent sites, reduction in curb cuts, and generally measures that are would be addressed to reduce congestion and reduce points of conflict, which would make things more walkable and better flow of traffic. So that would be the goal there. Accessory outdoor storage. This is one that, and it really should say retail, accessory outdoor retail sales, display, and storage. Storage is a little bit misleading. This is related to a section in our zoning ordinance that we have found to be a bit confusing in its application. And so, put very simply, we've started working on this and suggesting some changes, and we would like to eliminate the confusion that we have when we have new applications come in for principal uses that are primarily involve the display of retail items that are outside. Another item that's come up, this is ranked highly in a number of areas. You can see we ranked it 10th. It aligned with 3 core values, City Council, 2 focus areas of City Council, and 5 comp plan goals. By far surpassed any of the other items. I didn't mention that, but that's also a column. We wanted to see how did any of these align with some of the already stated goals of the city. This one relates to our subdivision ordinance requires that you dedicate greenway in certain cases, but our subdivision ordinance doesn't. So multifamily development that doesn't trigger our subdivision ordinance, where you may have a number of users that would benefit from recreation opportunities, they would either have to provide those or pay in, fee in lieu of greenway or parkland dedication as part of the development. That's the idea there. Tree ordinance, y'all are aware of this. We have our kickoff meeting next week related to the committee that's going to be looking at that. So that one's already being addressed, but we wanted to include it here. Food trucks, this has been a hot one for staff. The way it's set up and structured in our zoning ordinance now is problematic, and we have some, what I think are pretty neat solutions to improve that. And so then we get to housing strategies long-term. These are more difficult decisions, more complex changes. And so one thing that we've talked a lot about is how do we allow for multifamily to be a by right use, not automatically triggering CZD or being very limited in the zoning districts where it is allowed by right. Can we expand that? And would that be coupled with some limit to what would be by right, how many units that would include, and potentially design standards so that there's compatibility with surrounding land uses. That's missing middle housing basically in longer terms. Taking a look at some of our other multifamily zoning districts that have some just outdated standards, looking at the total amount of low-density single-family zoning we have and potentially reducing the minimum lot sizes in those areas or rezoning some of those areas so that some of the larger lots could potentially be subdivided into multiple lots. Or, we've even found that looking at some of the R15, that 50% of the parcels that are there don't meet the minimum lot size for R15. So part of that would be right-sizing the zoning so that it actually reflects the character that's there today. Addressing manufactured housing, we talked about that one a great deal. Density bonuses, height bonuses, things of that nature. And we actually have a much longer menu of housing strategies that you had directed us to look at, and we had met over a course of months, and so that would kind of tie into this right here that you had brought up to the council. So all that would be kind of packaged in here. Yes.
So would that, I guess, because like the more long-term strategies, in my opinion, kind of relate more to the comp plan. And like talking about using kind of a form-based code, which is kind of addresses the vanilla appearances. If everything kind of has these forms and matches, then, you know, that kind of encourages the by right development. But does that have to be like analyzed as part of the comp plan for that change to even occur? Or is that what you guys are recommending?
I wouldn't, it doesn't have to. It certainly could be, but it may be a good goal to do that so that we're looking at the future of the city, how we want it to grow, what the impacts of different types of growth scenarios would look like, where it would occur, how would it impact transportation patterns, traffic patterns. That was something the planning board brought up. And so because the comprehensive plan looks at all those elements and would make recommendations out of that, it would make sense potentially to wait on that. I don't know. You good? That would be, yeah, my answer. We could go either way, but there might be a better way. Chapter 7, this is our development regulations section. It says what you have to do if you want to make an application to develop in the city, what you have to, the information you have to give us, and the process is laid out. And there are some things there that need to align better with our Chapter 40, and some of this is tied to the 160D. It's a little bit of cleanup related to when we adopted the 160D changes. We also would want to eliminate things that are, you know, potential things that we have to focus really hard to make sure we don't miss a step. If we could streamline and you know, all deadlines are, you know, very clear. All the timelines for public notices are can be easily anticipated, things of that nature. We ranked this one pretty high. Code audit, this is more of a catch-all. Cleanup, mistakes, typos, clarifications, formatting, things of that nature. The references, correct references, I went through and I think I had found 10 references that either reference the wrong section of the zoning ordinance or say, you know, reference the paragraph above or reference the paragraph below, and it's actually above and not below, and things of that nature. So just correcting those references, things of that nature, and it would cover a lot of different sections and chapters. And we've got a running list of those items we'd like to clean up. The fee schedule, this upcoming fiscal year, this budget has changes to the fee schedule, which I think buy some time with this topic, but this idea would be generally updating, looking at peer cities and making sure that, and looking at the amount of staff time that we are spending on different items and making sure all of that aligns well. Double frontage lots, this is kind of a smaller standalone item. We don't define it. We don't really have a special treatment for it. We may want to consider doing that. Fencing, another item that, you know, it pops up every now and then where, you know, there's an issue with fencing. Where should it be placed? Should we be permitting it? What should it look like? Should it be in people's front yards? How high should it be? Another one that's, you know, it's a toss-up as to whether it's something that's worthy of spending time on. Buffer yards is another one that the main thing here is that we don't treat multifamily residential different than single family. We just say residential. Residential to residential does not require a buffer. And so the question would be, does multifamily, more intense, more dense residential deserve to be in a different category that would require a buffer from single family or lower intensity uses? And there's some other cleanup we could do there. And then this one is a staff one as well. And we talked about this at planning board some, defining camping camps, like summer camps, and campgrounds, like RV campgrounds, and distinguishing between those three. We don't do that well right now. And then when we have issues related to camping or, you know, unlawful activity, there's a clear section of the code. But again, this one, we talked about at planning board, could be more complex, and with our unhoused population, writing a code related to that would involve a number of partners, a number of points of view, and so this one could actually be rather complex. And I think a couple others that have come up more lately, we haven't really gotten into a lot of detail, but the sign ordinance is one that we've has been getting more attention lately. Some emerging topics relate to EV charging stations, how they need to be treated. Should we have some requirements for those? Solar panels in parking lots. Should we have standards for those as well? And so, as I mentioned, we got some feedback from planning board. We'd like to get some direction from you all, and then we would rank those, and as time permits and as needed, we would bring those forward to implement. And so with that, I'll open it up for any questions. And I can go back to any slides.
Questions or comments at this point?
I just have to say, this is an extensive amount of work
Yeah.
Oh,
you guys are doing, like, thank you. I mean, this is stuff that, you know, it's very hard to dig into each one of these. And, you know, you're talking about reading paragraph by paragraph and them not even referencing, that is in-depth work, you know. Thank you for doing that.
yeah, thank you.
So, Matt, before you sit down, I think,
I have a question about the one that's the code audit.
Yes.
It seems to me that that would be one that we would just be doing like now. I mean, if it's a problem that they've referenced the wrong paragraph, so we're not really changing anything, but we're making it read better.
Right, non-substantial.
Right. It seems to me that that would be something that we would always be doing, I guess. Or do you need special direction from council to fix basically verbiage and English problems?
That's what your question made me think of that, because I know that's come up before. I don't know if you have
Yeah, I mean, I still think we could be doing them like in a group, but it's still an amendment.
No, I get it.
Yeah, but yes, we absolutely could be doing those kinds of things all along.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like those would be,
Yeah.
they're not really changing the meaning of the ordinance. You're just trying to make it clarify it.
Right, right. And then if after the comp plan, Lou may want to talk about this, but after the comp plan, there's out there to rewrite the zoning ordinance anyway. And so that's going to present some, you know, all or part of it, some more opportunities to address some of these things and clean up some of those types of things too. But I mean, it's been piecemealed over a period of time, and I think periodically you do have to stop and take a big look and say, how can we make the flow better and fix some things? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the jokes in the office is, if you think you understand what the ordinance says, keep reading. Because there are often, you know, just additional pieces to it. And Councilmember Hensley, I just to add to some of what Matt said, some of the longer-term housing strategies, I think, will be, by their nature, more of a discussion point. And so I think there may be value in having sort of the comprehensive plan vision for when you all go to say, hey, we want to look at multifamily as a by right use at a certain level in these zoning districts. The effort of kind of collecting a community vision that's in the comp plan might provide a little bit more of a foundation for those, what will probably be, in some cases, more difficult conversations about what exactly should that look like, and how dense do we want certain things to be, and where do we want that to happen. Hopefully there will be ones that are easy, but I can imagine that there may be some that are not.
And don't forget your affordable housing strategic plan. That'll go right along and fold it. There'll be some overlap with that too.
so I think what we'll do is let council kind of digest this, and Lou, if there's particular areas that they are inclined to, or do we want to get?
Yeah, so.
How do you want to get information?
Yeah, we didn't want to, I didn't want to put too many guardrails on what your feedback looked like, because number one, if there was something that, you know, when Matt presented it and I heard a thump under the table, then I knew, okay, wait a minute, that's a red flag, maybe we don't want to do that one. If there are anything, you know, on that list that we're particularly concerned about, we would want to kind of know that. Jerry, Councilmember Smith, and I had a conversation earlier about, you know, do we have an opportunity to rank these? We'd certainly welcome that if that's something that council wants to provide us. Hey, here's how I think this is what matters to me. You can provide that to staff, and we can integrate that and even share it back with you all. Also, if the feedback is just generally, we like this idea and this approach, please proceed, that's how we'll tackle it. So I guess I'm leaving that pretty wide open. That's somewhat intentional, but if there is a desire to have that not be as wide open and be more specific in the direction back to staff, we're happy to take that feedback.
I support the latter statement, just so you know.
Well, one thought I have is, this is a long list. Maybe we should each think of our top 5, and then from there give us some direction. Obviously, you can't pursue all these at the same time. As opposed to ranking all of these, we figure out the ones, and it's kind of like a special appropriations thing, but figure out the ones that we think are most important, and then we go from, that's just a suggestion to us as to how we provide them some feedback. I just chose a random number 5.
I feel like all of them are important, though. That's the problem.
No, I agree, but they only have, but still, even with that, they can't do them all at one time. So would they need some direction for us as to which ones we want them to do now?
Well, I would think some of them would would naturally be maybe easier to work through, right? Some of them are just legal type things that you're clearing up, and which would require less back and forth with us. And then other things are, you know, continuing with the committee, with the planning board, and continuing to get their recommendations. They deal so much in depth with these issues, you know, that sometimes we're not even aware of, like the food truck thing. I wouldn't even think about that, you know? I'm apprehensive to rank them on my end, because I think you guys gave us this list because these were the list of things that you guys valued the most and that need to be addressed. I mean, if it's a staff time issue of like, here's your huge list, I guess my idea would be you work through them in the systematic approach that you've been doing it. Easiest first, maybe. Easiest to address.
Well, I don't mind giving you my opinion at another time about which ones I think are the more important ones. So I don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, I think we can each give our feedback in the way we feel most comfortable. I don't think we all have to rank, or we don't all have to choose 5 or whatever. You know, if there's some that really want to do that, great. If some just want to say, well, these seem to resonate with me, these few or these many, and offer that feedback, and then staff with planning board can decide where they need to go.
Well, I think what's interesting too is to look at how the planning board ranked things compared to the staff, and sometimes they are not lined up at all. But it's because maybe the planning board doesn't realize the staff time or the little quirky things that you guys deal with on a daily basis that they're not aware of. And then they hear the public things that you guys don't address as much as they do. So it's kind of a subjective thing with all of these, honestly.
I think we have direction. I think staff has heard what we need to hear, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. No, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to those, and we'll look forward to talking with you as need be.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone have anything else they want to